Hey, what's up, guys? Hello for Football Talk here. Another thrilling week of NFL action is in the books after this 8th slate of the year, and we're going to run through all 14 games, all the way from Thursday night to Monday Night Football. Once again, make sure to check out all my social media link down below and my page hellosforfootballtalk.com, where I will hand out my mid-season awards tomorrow. And if this is your first time listening to one of these breakdowns, you can find timestamps for all the individual games in the description if you don't have time to listen to the whole podcast. But otherwise, I will just talk you through all the Week 8 action, and if you have any more questions, just comment down below or DM me. With that being said, let's start this thing with Thursday Night Football in an NFC South battle between the Falcons and the Panthers. The Falcons were inside the Panthers 10 in a heartbeat with big completions to Julio off play action, who once again owned the middle of the field, but they ultimately had to settle for 3, and the Panthers quickly answered with 7 themselves as Mike Davis sliced through the Atlanta defense like a hot knife through butter. And then it was Curtis Samuel taking the ball into the end zone from about 15 yards away. The visitors once again got into the red zone after a few plays, but a big third down sack forced them to settle for 3 yet again. After a couple of first downs for Carolina the next possession, the Falcons got their first sack of the game on a corner blitz with Isaiah Oliver. However, after the punt on the first snap of the offense, Matt Ryan was picked off by corner Dante Jackson as the quarterback had Brian Burns in his face and just overthrew Ridley, which the Panthers quickly turned into a touchdown off a flea flicker where Teddy hit a beautiful ball and deep over to Curtis Samuel to put the home team up 14-6. That's when the Falcons finally got into the end zone, as after a big catch and run over the middle from Calvin Ridley, Matty Ice went on a rare scramble from 13 yards out for the touchdown, as Brian Burns tried another spin to the inside and flushed him that way. Calvin Ridley unfortunately would be knocked out for the rest of the game, and he's not there today. The Panthers put together another good looking drive, but then got stopped on 4th and short, as Bridgewater kept the ball in the zone replay and got chased out to the sideline for a turnover on downs. When Atlanta moved back into the red zone, the Panthers got Ryan for a sack on 2nd down, and as Ryan tried to take off yet again, he got chopped down from behind to force another field goal. For the Falcons, Brian Hill is really starting to take over more of the workload from Todd Gurley, especially in the middle of the game, and he seems to have a little more pep to his step in my opinion. Teddy at the halftime actually had a perfect passer rating, even though they were down 16-14. In the second half, we saw a couple of nice scrambles by Teddy as he escaped to the right to get the Panthers to midfield, but on a 4th and short at the opposing 40, the Falcons stuffed a Mike Davis run up the middle. Then both teams had to settle for punts, but even though the Panthers were in a 4th and 9, they decided to run a fake with rookie Jeremy Chin, who set his team up at the opposing 40 with a fresh set of downs. Unfortunately, Teddy got knocked out on 3rd down by a late hit from Charles Harris to the neck area of the quarterback. That was a pretty dirty shot, and that put in former XFL star Philip Walker, but the Panthers didn't pick up any other first down, leading to a field goal. Atlanta, on the other hand, moved right back down the field with completions to Hayden Hurst and Julio to go with Todd Gurley up the middle, who also ended up in the end zone, but with Yangiku missing the PAT, that kept this a one-possession game at 25-17. And after a physical Mike Davis run gave the Panthers a first down to start the ensuing drive, Bridgewater came back into the game, but the Falcons were finally able to stop the Curtis Samuel throw into the flats when he was coming out of the backfield, forcing another punt, which they ended up pinning Atlanta inside their own 5 on a coffin corner kick. However, a great catch and run, breaking 2 tackles on a dump-off in the flats laid up by Brian Hill off play action, gave the Falcons some breathing room, and when it looked like Carolina had made a stop on 3rd down with Brian Burns getting a sack on Matt Ryan, the second-year edge rusher actually went down with an injury, and an illegal contact led to a new first down for Atlanta. They got a big tackle for loss and actually forced Gurley out of bounds on a toss play, giving the ball back to the Panthers with about 3 minutes left and all 3 timeouts, but they would now have to start from their own 5. On the first play of the drive, DJ Moore finally made his first catch of the game, and he had a monster stiff arm after picking up a first down. A couple of blitzes from Deion Jones blew up a screen pass and then led to a sack, before Moore came up with a huge grab on 3rd and 17 as he had to adjust to an underthrown double move against the corner AJ Terrell. But on the next 3rd down, Bridgewater tried to fit it in there for Moore again as he fell away, and the receiver was basically triple covered, with bleeder Ray Wilson picking it off, and that ended the game. The Panthers could not cover Julio Jones in their zone patterns and were probably too scared to put anybody on him in man, as he caught 7 passes for 137 yards, while tight end Hayden Hurst was pretty involved there as well, getting past the marker. This was also the most productive game for the tight end on the other side, Ian Thomas for the Panthers, who I thought before the season could take another step potentially. With the Panthers missing their starting left tackle Russell Okung, whoever went up against Greg Little found success in the pass rush, and he actually got benched for Trent Scott, who didn't play a whole lot better either. So hopefully they can get Okung back into the lineup. But that takes us to a Sunday slate, and since I always take this directly from NFL.com, we're going to start with the biggest matchup of the day, as the 6-0 Steelers travel to Baltimore to take on the 5-1 Ravens in a huge AFC North clash, which will give the winning team a huge heads up in the race for the division. Things could not have started out worse for the home team, as Lamar Jackson threw a pick six to Robert Spillane on just the third play of the game, as the quarterback was a little late on the spot route to Miles Boykin, and almost threw this one without even looking, as he had his eyes to the left and tried to open that window. However, Lamar would go right back to Boykin over the middle of play action, and after Cam Hayward gifted the Ravens a free first down on a late hit out of bounds, when Baltimore's quarterback would have been stopped way short of the third down anyway, Lamar got a nice catch and run play from Willie Snead for 34 yards after extending the play, and then hit Boykin again in the end zone on a perfectly thrown corner route. Big Ben took some shots on the perimeter to test Baltimore's aggressive man coverage with their corners, which on the ensuing third down led to one of a few PI calls against their corners, but the Ravens was forced to punt, and the 28-yard run from rookie J.K. Dobbins later, they were already at first and goal. 2 plays later, however, Bud Dupree knocked the ball out of Lamar's hand, which was recovered by the Steelers at their own 4, avoiding any points on that drive. Pittsburgh would be held to just 1 first down, and even was pretty conservative with a run call on 3rd and long after that, as they thought they could maybe catch them in the light box. That would be one of 3 straight drives of 5 plays that ended in a punt for either team, as Lamar was sacked and the Ravens won, and they suffered a much bigger loss when All-Pro left tackle Ronnie Stanley was rolled up on that play and will be out for the season with a bad ankle injury, just a couple of days after signing a huge extension with Baltimore. And then on the Steelers side, they had a bad drop from Jalen Samuels to slow down their drive, but then Baltimore really started leaning on the run game, as they got big runs from Dobbins, Gus Edwards and the quarterback, as they went from one 20-yard line to the other in 6 straight run plays, and then the Gus bus finished off from a yard away. The Steelers got a big run themselves from James Conner a couple of plays later, and then got help from the refs as a bit of a scuffle broke out, and Matt Judon got disqualified for hitting a ref when he actually just tried to get out of the grasp of one of the Ravens coaches actually. Plus they also got those 15 yards for free, of course. But Deshaun Elliott would end that drive on a safety blitz, and if not for Big Ben catching the ball again in midair, that would have been another turnover. Pittsburgh almost got another takeaway by the defense as Joe Hayden drove hard on the curl route, but the Ravens would get another 51-yard field goal from the incredible Justin Tucker with zeros on the clock, capping off that 15-play drive at the end of the half. And at the break, the Ravens already had 3 players with 50-plus rushing yards against the number 2 run defense in the league, and they had run about twice as many plays as their opponents. However, the Steelers started the second half almost like they did the game, as Lamar was picked off by rookie outside linebacker Alex Highsmith, who was actually covering the fullback Ricard in the flats off play action, but because tight end Mark Andrews ran his out on such a flat angle, Lamar could not quite loft it over the top of the underneath defender, and then 2 plays later, Eric Ebron took a wide open shell crosser 18 yards for a touchdown on a blown assignment for the Ravens to make this a field goal difference, even though the Steelers offense had barely done anything up to that point. And after Baltimore's first 3 and out of the afternoon, the Steelers marched right down the field as Big Ben led them mostly in no-huddle drive to get them into the red zone, and then it was Connor cashing in from a yard away, which brought Pittsburgh their first lead since their pick six to start the game. Even though the Ravens could avoid another turnover, as a loose ball following an Andrews fumble was touched by a defender out of bounds, they had to punt from midfield following that, and their defense forced a 3 and out by putting pressure on Ben and getting the ball back with about a minute left in the third quarter. Stephon Tuitt and the Isaiah Bucs got a big sack on Lamar on the second play of that drive to force the 3rd and 14, but then Lamar hit Devin Duvernay on a 39-yard completion on a bit of a dig and up route, taking advantage of the Steelers jumping those routes that broke inside or back towards the quarterback in zone coverage. And even after a spectacular 20-yard touchdown run from Lamar was taken off the board by a holding call, they got a big completion to Willie Snead for a new first down. And on the very next play, another potential touchdown was not given to them, as Marquise Brown's knee was right on the edge of being in, but Lamar came right back to his number 1 receiver, sitting down the end zone on a designed rollout. Now with Baltimore back up by 3, Big Ben converted a couple of 3rd and shorts, with Juju Smith-Schuster on a tough run off a bubble screen on the second one, before getting a pass interference call on a deep ball to Chase Claypool, and after Juju got them to Baltimore's 8, the Steelers quarterback from there hit a strike to Claypool in a corner route for the touchdown. With Edwards and Dobbins continuing to find success in the run game, the Ravens made it inside the red zone in just 6 plays, but that defense stopped Lamar runs on 3 of those next 4 plays, with the final one coming on a quarterback draw from an empty set, where they had a good look against that 5-man box that the Steelers were running for quite a while. But Isaiah Bucs right over the center did a great job of just slowing it down a little bit before the other guys could come in, and it was actually with a fumble. You can see that on my cover photo. Baltimore's defense came up with yet another huge 3-and-out, giving the ball back to the offense with 52 seconds left on the clock. On 4th and 2, Lamar got a huge completion to Willie Snead to get Baltimore to the imposing 23-yard line, but the Steelers also got a huge break on that play, as there should have clearly been time added to the clock, with Cam Hayward getting hurt on the play, and that's sort of holding up the spike for the Ravens. And with another pass to the sideline to get them a little closer, falling incomplete, as TJ Watt affected the throw, the Ravens were down to just one play, as Lamar tried to drill it in there for Snead down the seams, but Minkah Fitzpatrick came over and delivered a big hit to break it up, keeping the Steelers as the only undefeated team in the league. I believe the Ravens got a few bad breaks in this game by the officials, but in the end it comes down to them going away from the run game in key situations, after they had run the ball 47 times for 265 yards, and a couple of incredibly costly turnovers, with 2 of them directly leading to half of the Steelers' points, and the other 2 coming in direct scoring range. Baltimore's defense really brought the heat and kept the Steelers' offense scoreless until being set up in the red zone after an interception right after halftime. I think if they play this game 5 times, the Ravens win at least 3, and probably 4 of those. And I can't wait for Thanksgiving night to see the rematch in Pittsburgh. Let's move on to what was a big shocker for a lot of people, as the Dolphins beat the Rams handedly. This was the first start for Tua Tagovailoa, the 5th overall pick, and I like the Dolphins coming into this matchup and even put some money on them at plus 3.5, since I thought similar to what the Giants did, they had the big bodies to clog up lanes in the run game, and the guys in the secondary to force Goff to beat them with throws against man coverage. However, Tua and that Dolphins offense actually never really kicked into gear, as they punted the ball 4 times and fumbled twice in the first half, with Tua getting stripped by Aaron Donald on his first dropback of the game, welcoming him to the pros, and then Myles Gaskin put the ball on the ground inside Miami's own 10-yard line, as they handed it to him up the middle for some breathing room when they were deep in their own territory. Ellie was able to capitalize off that first takeaway with a 3-yard touchdown run by Robert Woods on a fly sweep, but the second one ended in a 79-yard fumble return touchdown by Andrew Van Ginkel on the Dolphins defense. That was actually one of 4 Rams turnovers in the first half alone. They got a few nice gains in the run game with Darrell Henderson and from the connection between Jared Goff and Cooper Kupp, but it took them until 11 seconds in the half to get any points outside of that Tua fumble at the very start, hitting a chip shot field goal at the end. And the Dolphins could have easily had 2 more interceptions in the second half, once with Eric Rowe jumping a hitch route where there would have been no one in front of him after that, and then Goff had a screen pass batted up dangerously. Brian Flores clearly had a beat on the protection screams of LA, which he also did as the de facto defensive coordinator for New England in their Super Bowl against the Rams, as all 4 turnovers came due to pressure in the face of Goff. On the first 2, Miami took advantage of the rules in empty sets, first getting defensive lineman Christian Wilkins underneath a shallow cross and a little hook drop and intercepting what I think was the hot read, and then following that Gaskin fumble, as on 2nd and goal, Emmanuel Ogbah came off the edge unblocked and blew up Goff, leading to that long fumble return touchdown by Van Ginkel. Eric Rowe got Goff for another interception, as the quarterback just floated it to the outside with a free rusher in his face, as this time they did bring all the 7 guys they had at the line, and then finally Shaq Lawson won a mismatch against tight end Gerald Everett, who for some reason had him 1-on-1 in protection, for a strip sack on Goff, which was scooped up by Calvin Noy and taken all the way to the opposing 2, which led to a touchdown run from Myles Gaskin. The Dolphins have the guys to take away all those easy completions that Sean McVay usually gives Jared Goff by playing tight man coverage, and then they switch to some zone looks to shut down screens or throw in a few change-ups. I have a short video breakdown from what Miami did defensively on my Twitter and Instagram channels, so make sure to check that out. And that combined with an 88-yard punt return touchdown from Jakeem Grant, which was actually the first of any team all season long, where his speed burned several angles at the sideline, had Miami up 28-10 at the break, despite having only 59 yards of total offense at that point. Neither offense provided a lot of fireworks in the second half either, as the first 7 drives after the break combined for just 81 yards, and the only one that didn't end up in a punt was a turnover on downs for LA. The Rams did finally score again with about 10 minutes left, as Jared Goff completed 5 straight passes, including a couple of screens, with the last one coming on a wide open crossing route to Robert Woods off play action for an 11-yard touchdown. And after another Miami punt, the visitors put together one more drive with double-digit plays, but with Kai Forbath unable to convert on the 48-yard field goal attempt to make this a one-score game with under 4 minutes left, that was pretty much a wrap. The discrepancy in the numbers between these two teams is unfathomable, as the Rams had 471 yards of total offense compared to only 145 to Miami, while their 31 first downs on the day were almost 4 times as many as the Dolphins' 8, and the Rams ran 44 more plays altogether. That 33-yard touchdown drive to get Miami on the board in the first quarter was the longest one in the day, and on the other 12 possessions, outside of that 1-yard touchdown run from Gaskin following a Dolphins strip sack, 10 of them ended in punts, and the other 2 were fumbles. The yardage and whatever given up may not look great for the Miami defense, but they were all over what the Rams tried to do and basically won the game on their own. So why the hell did I decide on the Packers defense and fantasy over them at the very end? I still regret that. And with that we get to a game that was much easier to predict, as the Kansas City Chiefs obviously blew out the Jets. This game had the biggest spread of the weekend and of the entire season according to Vegas, which depending on when and where you looked was right about that 20 mark, and that still wasn't enough in this matchup between the worst team in the league and in my opinion still the very best. Patrick Mahomes finished the day with 31 of 42 for 416 yards and 5 touchdowns. That is 1 more passing touchdown than the Jets have as a team so far this season altogether. And of the 5 for Pat, that 1 sick underhand shovel screen to Travis Kelce was the only one that didn't come on a pass of at least 25 yards. The stress the Chiefs put on the secondary with that arsenal of track stars is just unreal. However, a lot of the offensive success for KC came over the final 32 minutes of the game, as up to that point, the Jets were actually only down 14-9 thanks to 3 field goals by the second kicker, Sergio Castillo, whose only miss came on a block kick by the Chiefs. In the second half, Gang Green's only possession of more than 3 plays lasted 1 extra snap, which ended up in a Chris Herndon fumble. Despite being up by a comfortable margin at halftime, both Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell carried the ball only 6 times each, and the team put up just 50 yards on the ground on 2.5 yards a clip. They just continued to fire deep and find success, until the Chiefs brought in backup quarterback Chad Henne for the final drive, which still has the 12 plays. Sam Darnold put up only 133 passing yards and 30 attempts, and their leading rusher was Frank Gore with 30 yards and 10 carries, while the Jets defense hit opposing quarterbacks on just 3 of 47 pass attempts and allowed Mahomes to kill them time and time again. A couple more notes here. The Chiefs' second touchdown was actually set up by a fake punt, but Tommy Townsend hit Byron Pringle on the curl route. And also check out the photo of now former Jets linebacker Avery Williamson on Instagram, who posed as a hitchhiker in full-on Jets gear as he's trying to get to Pittsburgh as soon as possible, going from an 0-8 team to a perfect 7-0 Steelers squad. The Jets have now failed to put up more than 10 points in 4 straight weeks, while the Chiefs, since losing their only game of the season against the Raiders, have outscored their opposition by an average of just over 20 points in the last 3 games. It's tough for me to find a win on the Jets' schedule now, as they will host a desperate New England team next week before going on their bye, while Kansas City will have the Panthers coming to town before their week off, and then they will face their biggest challenges with a trip to Las Vegas looking for revenge against the Raiders, and then going to Tampa Bay in what could be a Super Bowl preview potentially. Let's move on to a divisional matchup between the Vikings and the Packers in the NFC North. And tell me this, when was the last time you saw a team score 28 points and win a game when the quarterback completed only 11 passes for 160 yards? And even that is misleading, as one of Kirk Cousins' passes came on a screen pass to Dalvin Cook, who went 50 yards to the house on the quarterback's only touchdown of the game. But that's what happens when you have an unstoppable running back, who also ran the ball 30 times for another 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook was absolutely unstoppable with his ability to run through arm tackles and quickly expose open lanes for chunk plays. Aaron Rodgers doubled the guy on the other side in passing yards. The Packers possessed the ball longer, and they had only 1 turnover on the day, as Rodgers was stripped from behind by 4th-round pick DJ Wonnum as he was loading up for a Hail Mary attempt on the last play of the game. This was another pretty odd box score, as both teams had consecutive touchdown drives with double-digit plays before the Packers just ran out the clock on one last play to close out the first half, with really only 4 combined possessions. That led to a score of 14-all, and it was all about the run game for both squads, while Rodgers connected with his tight ends and Davante Adams. In the second half, Green Bay started with a couple of turnovers and downs, as they went for it on the fringe of field goal range, and then had to punt once, following consecutive holding penalties. The Vikings, on the other hand, extended things to 4 straight possessions ending in touchdowns, as they continued to ride Cook, and Cousins had to complete just 2 passes outside of that 50-yard screen pass to a superstar running back, to go with a couple of defensive pass interference calls. The final 3 possessions for Minnesota ended in punts in 5 plays or less, while the Pack finally was able to score again with under 3 minutes left, as Davante Adams got his 3rd touchdown of the afternoon, and then down by 6 thanks to a successful 2-point conversion with Jamal Williams. They had a chance for Minnesota's 41, but then of course that game-sealing strip sack happened. On the first drive of the second half, the Packers were actually on their way to tying the score at 21, and getting to the end zone themselves for a 3rd straight time, But equanimity is St. Brown, and consecutive passes go off his hands, with the second one being swiped out by Harrison Smith in the end zone on the 4th and 10, with kicker Mason Crosby apparently not being quite right. That, and getting to a 1st and 30 as they were already across midfield, was really the difference in the end, because other than that, the Packers offense could not be slowed down until a flag for an obvious pass interference against Anthony Harris going up against Robert Tonyan, for Lord knows why, was picked up by the officials and what should have been a 4th down conversion, especially considering the refs did call a couple of those against the Packers on the drive right before that. As crazy as it sounds, considering a 1-5 team just beat a 5-1 team at their place, this game didn't really show me anything that I didn't know. Dalvin Cook is freaking awesome, and the Packers' interior defense has some major issues against the run, even with Kenny Clark at the nose. Aaron Rodgers can still pick apart this inexperienced Vikings secondary, but he needs that second receiver that he can rely upon. So consider I'm recording this before the trade deadline actually happened. Maybe they still make a move here, even with some rumors about Will Fuller coming over maybe. And neither one of these teams can consistently create pressure, especially against well-balanced opponents. That's why I'm still somewhat worried for the Pack falling to 5-3 on Thursday night in San Francisco, even with the 49ers missing Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle, and why the Vikings might take advantage of a pretty soft schedule over the next month, but still probably won't be affected down the road in my opinion. In this next game, we have another NFC North team in the Detroit Lions hosting the Indianapolis Colts. And the final score in this one is a bit deceiving at 41-21, because the score was 20-14 for Indianapolis with less than 3 minutes remaining in the third quarter, and the Lions had a chance to potentially take the lead as they were already at the opposing 25, but a big sack from Darius Leonard knocking the ball out of the hands of Matthew Stafford as the linebacker came on a delayed loop, and over a little more than the next 10 minutes, Indy would score 3 more touchdowns to put this one away, with a pass interference call on a deep ball bailing them out on 3rd and long to set up a 1-yard score from Jordan Wilkins, a pick six by Kenny Moore on the very next play from scrimmage, who was just waiting there in the flats on an intended curl route, and then after a 73-yard bomb from Matthew Stafford to Marvin Hall, set up a short touchdown to Marvin Jones. Rivers led an impressive 12-play touchdown drive to close this one out, as the Lions were ultimately stopped inside the red zone in the last push. Before those 4 combined touchdowns over about a 10-minute span, this was a close contest, as neither team could cross midfield on the first 3 combined possessions, before Detroit was first to get on the board with a 25-yard dime from Matthew Stafford to Marvin Jones on a deep cross-off play action to capitalize off a blocked Indy punt to Miles Killebrew. The Colts would score in the final 3 possessions of the first half, with Nyheim Hines getting into the end zone on a couple of touchdown catches of over 20 yards, with a beautiful spin move on the first one, and a great over-the-shoulder catch on a wheel route at the end of the half, while the second drive was actually extended by a questionable unnecessary roughness call against Danny Shelton, basically just falling down Phillip Rivers on a sack that would have actually knocked Indy out of field goal range pretty much, and it was actually Rivers starting a brawl right after that, before the Colts quarterback hit Jack Doyle in the flats for an easy touchdown from 7 yards away. I'm all for protecting quarterbacks for all that unnecessary stuff that happens, but that was a bad call in my opinion, and it kind of makes me sick at times how one side is punished in those situations. The Lions, on the other hand, gained a combined 2 yards on the next 3 possessions after getting on the board early, before Stafford and his tight end TJ Hawkinson set up a 48-yard field goal attempt that ended in a rare, badly hooked kick from Matt Prater to send us to the break at 21-7 for Indianapolis. Detroit, however, would open the second half with an 8-play touchdown drive, including a couple of big third-down conversions by Stafford, and finished off by Kerryon Johnson stretching the ball out inside the pylon after catching a simple flat route. Yet after a couple of 3-and-outs for the Colts is when they took over the game, and that's how we ended in a 20-point difference. While Indy did run the ball 39 times, they averaged just 3.1 yards per carry, and rookie Jonathan Taylor was particularly disappointing as he put up just 22 yards on 11 attempts, while Jordan Wilkins actually led the way, but that allowed the Colts to dominate time of possession with almost 38 minutes, the highest for any team so far this season. And as crazy as it sounds, Jamal Agnew was actually the Lions' leading rusher with 11 yards and 1 carry, as they put up just 29 yards on the day as a team on 12 carries. The leading receivers for these two teams were the aforementioned Nyheim Hines with 3 grabs of 54 yards and those 2 touchdowns, and then on the Lions side, Marvin Hall, who caught 4 passes for a career-high 113 yards. When you look at the guys that are publicly perceived as the number 1 options of both these squads, T.Y. Hilton left the game in the second quarter after catching just 2 balls for 9 yards, and Kenny Galladay left the game catchless at the end of the first half as well with a hip injury, after Rock Ya-Sin stuck to him like glue up to that point. As someone who had a 5-game parlay that already included outright wins from the Dolphins and the Raiders, The late game dramatics really hurt me here, as that under 50 all of a sudden looked like a really bad bet, even though it seemed fine for 3 quarters. And since we just talked about the Raiders, they won a low-scoring game in Cleveland by 10 points against the Browns. On paper, this should have been a high-scoring affair, as the Raiders were averaging 26.2 points per game, and the Browns were at 28.6 points per game, but it took until the start of the fourth quarter for either team to finally reach the end zone, and both squads set or tied season lows in points for a game. The two quarterbacks combined for less than 250 passing yards, despite staying clean throughout the game, as Derek Carr was sacked twice, but barely pressured other than that, and then Baker Mayfield took just one hit all day, while still completing only 12 of 25 passes. The win was a big factor, as we saw the goalposts shaking at times, and then on the first field goal attempt of the day, when the kick actually started towards the right upright, but then still dunked off the left one. This was all about controlling the clock and grinding away the game for the Raiders. I just talked about the Colts possessed the ball a season high 37 minutes and 46 seconds. Well, Las Vegas came up just 3 seconds short of that mark on Sunday. They ran the ball 45 times for over 200 yards, with Josh Jacobs handling 31 carries for 128 of those. The Browns had made it towards field goal range following that missed initial kick for the Raiders, but then tight end Harrison Bryant put it on the ground while getting dragged down from behind. Derek Carr would be sacked by Le'Veon Vernon on the ensuing third down, before Cleveland put the first 3 points on the board at the end of a 14-play drive, after Baker was almost picked up by Nick Kwiatkowski the snap before. Vegas would tie the score to cap off a 16-play drive of their own, on which they almost exclusively ran the ball to set up one of 2 4th-and-1 conversions following Olivia Vernon's second sack, and Henry Ruggs could not quite get his feet down in the end zone on a corner route. After a quick 3-and-out for Cleveland, the Silver and Black would hit another field goal after a couple of Carr scrambles, and hitting Jalen Rashad on an angle route for easy yardage, sending us to the break with the Raiders up 6-3. A Kareem Hunt-centric drive to open the second half allowed the Browns to tie things up with yet another field goal, after a 20-yard touchdown pass to Jarvis Landry was taken off the board due to the ball hitting the ground on review, following a tiptoe run after the catch at the sideline from the same guy. The Raiders had 2 more ridiculous drives that brought them 10 points, as they took a combined 17 minutes and 41 seconds off the clock, with Derek Carr not throwing the ball beyond 5 yards once, but contributed with his legs. The first one ended in a touchdown for Hunter Renfrow on a sick little route where they motioned the receiver across the field and had him run towards the flats, but then pivot back inside and catch the ball for a touchdown. And the second drive almost ended in a turnover, as Carr had the ball ripped out from behind on a keep inside the opposing 5, but Devin Booker made maybe the best play of the night, as he jumped on the loose ball after hustling behind his quarterback when there were 5 Browns defenders right around it. That saved the field goal to make this a 10-point difference, after Jacobs got stopped inches short of the goal on a couple of occasions. Booker's contributions were meaningful, and he and Jacobs plowed through defenders all game long. Cleveland had just 1 first down in between those 2 drives, and when they finally got the ball back, there was only 4 minutes left on the clock. Jarvis Landry did make an incredible one-handed grab, and Baker picked up a crucial 3rd and long on a scramble. But after a couple of throws to Landry in the end zone were broken up, the Browns had to settle for a field goal to make this a 7-point game, but once again the wind blew the ball to the left, and even though the Browns had all 3 timeouts just beyond the 2-minute warning, with Josh Jacobs ripping off a 16-yarder 2 plays later, that ended the game. Other than dominating with the run game, the Raiders were also 8 of 14 on 3rd downs, while the Browns only converted 3 of the 10 attempts. However, they were both 2-2 on 4th downs, and Cleveland was in position to score the first points, as well as make this a 1-score difference late. And that brings us to the upset of the afternoon, as the 1-win Cincinnati Bengals beat the 5-1 Tennessee Titans. If you had told me that the Titans would rush for over 200 yards and 7.5 yards a pop, and that they would convert 60% of the 3rd and 4th downs combined, I would have thought they easily won this game. But the Bengals controlled the ball for over 36 minutes with their short passing game, and they went 10 of 15 on 3rd downs with no turnovers. Joe Burrow came into this game tied for the most sacked quarterback in the league, but on Sunday against the Titans, he was only hit twice and did not get sacked at all as a result of that spread-based passing attack, not even allowing those rushes to get to Burrow, and then the rookie quarterback making some tremendous throws when scrambling. The Bengals started out with an impressive 12-play drive that ended in a field goal, which was extended by an incredible sideline grab from rookie wideout T. Higgins as Burrow just threw it up there while scrambling to the right. On the other hand, the 2 initial possessions for Tennessee brought less favorable results, as first Ryan Tannehill was picked off by Jesse Bates in the end zone after a couple of big 3rd down conversions set them up a 1st and goal, and then had a 53-yard field goal attempt go off the upright. From that point on, Cincinnati scored touchdowns on 4 of the next 5 drives, while Tennessee was forced to punt 3 times and had time run out on the final drive to end the half when they were already around midfield. The Bengals defense actually could never slow down the Titans' run game and the play action off it, but on the 2 drives to start the second half, they were forced to punt due to a holding call putting them behind the chains, and then after forcing Tennessee to throw the ball by selling out against the run with the heavy blitz looks, and all of a sudden the Bengals were up 24-7 at the start of the fourth quarter. Tennessee helped them out with an unnecessary roughness penalty to extend one of those drives before Burrow hit Tyler Boyd for a touchdown on the delayed out route. And when the Titans were finally able to put some points on the board with A.J. Brown catching a quick underneath pass and breaking a couple tackles to reach the end zone, after the backs just ran through the defense like it was nothing, the Bengals got a return across midfield from Brandon Wilson, and then answered with a touchdown of their own on a short pass to Giovanni Bernard on an out route, after Burrow hooked up with Tyler Bird on a 3rd and long conversion just before that, when the defender covering him was holding the receiver like crazy, but Burrow placed it away from the defender to where Boyd could grab it and set up a 1st and goal. Since his defense didn't help out a whole lot, as Tannehill got 4 straight first downs through the air after that, and following an offside penalty, taking a Von Bell interception off the board, Corey Davis hauled in the touchdown on a speed out at the front pylon. That's the only time that the Bengals relied on the run game to take down the rest of the clock. Before on a 3rd and 8, they got a little lucky as a Jayon Brown interception was wiped out by pass interference on the corner who was defending a slant route that I don't think actually really influenced the play. That was really Burrow's only mistake of the day. And of course on the next 3rd down, their coaches put the ball back in the hands of the rookie quarterback, and he delivered a high point back shoulder throw to Auden Tate. And after taking almost 6 minutes off the clock, the Titans couldn't do anything with the last 16 seconds. Cincinnati had 2 running backs score on the ground, and they did go over 100 rushing yards on the day. But this was all about Joe Burrow picking apart Tennessee's coverages. Once again, I was so impressed with the number 1 overall pick. When you look at the precision he spread the ball around with, the maturity he showed in his decision making to avoid bad plays, and then the ability to extend plays and create off script to go along with that is special. One positive note for the Titans, I think they finally found their running back too in the mold of Derrick Henry and former Longhorn and Texan Deontay Foreman, who I like quite a bit coming out of college, but he had some injuries and off the field stuff put his NFL journey on the wrong path. He and Jeremy McNichols went for almost 90 yards on 9 carries to take some of the load off their workhorse back in Derrick Henry. And now we move on to another divisional matchup with the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. This was the game where the Bills could finally snatch the AFC East crown away from the Patriots, and even though a lot of people I respect thought the spread of 3.5 was only due to respect for Coach Belichick, I saw how New England was a bad matchup for the division rivals, and not only did I pick them, but I also had some money on them to cover, which they obviously did, but they also had a chance to take the lead or at least send this to overtime late. After a couple of first downs, New England ended the first drive of the day with a punt, which the Bills converted into a touchdown in 10 plays covering 78 yards, with rookie running back Zach Moss running through a big hole up the middle to reach the end zone. The rest of the first half included only 6 points for either team, as Cam Newton came out firing and really looked for Jacoby Myers with his top 2 targets out for this contest to go with picking up yards with his legs, but a holding call and a sack killed a couple of promising drives, while the other 2 ended in field goals for the visitors. While Buffalo's only drive beyond 1 first down was stopped by a J.C. Jackson interception as Josh Allen threw it beyond Stephon Diggs on a curl route, where the timing seemed to be a little off. Jackson did a good job overall against the Bills' number 1 receiver for pretty much the entire day. However, up 7-6 coming out of the break, Diggs finally got free against his man on another curl route, and then went a good 30 yards after the catch as the receiver ran through some defenders at the end of it, and then there was Moss cashing in for a second time from 4 yards away on the very next play. And following a Jerry Hughes sack, putting the Patriots behind the chains and forcing another punt, the New England defense came up with a 3 and out of their own, which after a short punt and return on the run, had them set up inside the Buffalo 40 already, and 5 plays later, that ended in a 22-yard touchdown run from Damian Harris, and then Cam hit Jacoby Myers in the back of the end zone to tie the game at 14. New England really started using the downhill run game against the suspect Bills defense, and Harris went for over 100 yards on the day with his hard-nosed running style. However, after a failed surprise onside kick by the Patriots, the Bills, despite not having run the ball well at all so far this year, started themselves to take advantage of that undersized Patriots D-line before their big quarterback tanked ahead in a draw play from an empty set, which is a play that they love, for a touchdown on 3rd and goal, after Devin Singletary and Zach Moss took them down there, putting them up by a touchdown once again. We would say a 3rd straight TD drive, however, as after a couple of nice catches for Damiere Byrd on a deep cross and then on a slant route, New England continued to lean on the run game, and then it was their quarterback finishing off the drive with a touchdown run on a sweep play. Nice gains on the run by Zach Moss and a slip screen of John Brown had the Bills inside the red zone, but they ultimately had to settle for a field goal, giving the Patriots a chance with 4 minutes left on the clock and all 3 timeouts to either tie the game or go ahead in this one. And some short passes to go with a 19-yard run by Cam later. New England had a 1st and 10 inside the Buffalo 20, but 2 plays later, they were in another one of those quarterback sweeps with Cam, but this time defensive tackle Justin Zimmer made a tremendous hustle play to punch the ball out from behind, and it was recovered by the Bills with about half a minute left, allowing them to just take a knee, or rather 3 of them, as Belichick was a little petty with taking his timeouts. Buffalo is now in firm control of the AFC East at 6-2, ahead of facing 2 NFC West teams with 6 and 5 wins respectively, while New England has now lost 4 straight for the first time since 2002. And the history of 2 and 5 teams isn't very good to say the least, as only 7 of them have made the playoffs since 1990. Fortunately for them, they face the winless Jets this upcoming Monday night, so that should give them some confidence again. And with that, we move on to the midday window, with the LA Chargers going to Denver to take on the Broncos. And even though the other 2 games from this window were much more exciting on paper, this actually became the most thrilling one of the 3. After a quick 3 and out for Denver, Justin Herbert was picked off on the ensuing 3rd and long, as he tried to hit another one of those deep post routes to Jalen Guyton, but this time Justin Simmons jumped in front of the receiver and set up his own offense inside the red zone already, which ultimately led to a field goal. Both teams would punt shortly after, before a big Josh Kelly run set the Chargers up near midfield, but the Broncos defense would step up on 4th and short from the Denver 25 to get their offense the ball back. And about a minute into the second quarter, the Broncos finally got their initial first down of the game on a throw to Jerry Jeudy, but that would be it again. Both offenses continued to struggle with sustaining drives until Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen set up the Chargers with a goal-to-go situation at the 2-minute warning, and that connection also finally got LA on the board. However, after another quick 3 and out for the Broncos, the Bolts got the ball back with just over a minute left, and following a big Justin Jackson run, Herbert hit Mike Williams for a big sideline catch inside the 5, and then on the very next play, threw a laser to Nate Gabers as the rookie quarterback just stopped on a bootleg and found his fullback working across the field. All of a sudden, after being down 3-0 at the 2-minute warning, the Chargers were up 14-3 at halftime. LA's offense continued to stay hot in the second half, as they went on another impressive drive to open things up, as Herbert scrambled for a first down, and then hit Mike Williams on a fade route in the back corner of the end zone, who made a one-handed grab on the other end of a perfect throw from the young signal caller for the 3rd touchdown of the game. As all but one early field goal after the Simmons interception, the Broncos had their 5th straight drive ended up in a punt, this one in the 3 and out variety, before a couple of big Tryman Pope runs set the Chargers up for a 52-yard field goal by Michael Badgley, following Herbert overshooting Guyton on another deep ball on 3rd down, but the visitors were now up 24-3. That's when the Broncos finally had to get that offense going, and after being held to just 2 rushing yards up to that point, when what actually was a rather favorable matchup here, it was a 55-yard touchdown run from Phillip Lindsay right up the middle that gave Denver some life finally. The defense also finally got back to making some stops as well, forcing a punt from midfield, but 2 plays later, Drew Lock would throw a horrible pick as he tried to hit Jerry Jeudy on an out and up, but with safety Rashawn Jenkins bailing at the snap and following Lock's eyes the whole way, he got an easy interception. Thankfully for the Broncos, cornerback Bryce Callahan would return the favor as Herbert threw up a 50-50 ball for Mike Williams in the end zone, and Callahan found a way to rip it away midair for the INT. Following that, Locke went right back to Jeudy over the middle of play action, and then hit him again on a deep in-breaking route on 3rd and long for a 43-yard gain, before finding his former Missouri teammate in tight end Albert Okwekwenum down the seam on a great pass over the outstretched hand of the underneath linebacker, and all of a sudden this was a 1-score game. The Broncos defense had seemingly made a stop on a 3rd down sneak from Herbert, but Bradley Chubb got his fingers caught inside the quarterback's face mask, which the refs usually rarely see in the middle of that kind of scrum, but that extended that drive, which ended up in an LA field goal to make this a 10-point affair once again. Denver would get back to the opposing 40 just 1 play later, as Lindsay got another big run and the Chargers gifted them 15 more yards on a late hit out of bounds, and then on the 2nd play only of that drive, they cashed in on a post route from Deshaun Hamilton for a touchdown for over 40 yards, as LA's deep middle safety fell down as he was trying to make the tackle. A couple of physical Justin Jackson runs set the Bolts up with a 1st and 10 inside the red zone, but then an illegal crackback block put them behind the chains and forced them to extend the lead to just 6 with a field goal. That gave the ball back to the home team with 2.5 minutes left and a chance to put together a game-winning drive. Melvin Gordon picked up a couple of third downs, with the second one needing review to determine that the running back stretched out just far enough, and 2 huge PI calls against the rookie tight end Albert O kept the drive alive, with the second one coming on 4th down in the end zone, setting up one final play with 1 second left as Locke rolled to his right off play action, and then at the last moment hit rookie KJ Hamler, who just had his backside land inbounds, and the PAT put the Broncos up by 1 to win the game. This was such an odd game, as neither offense could do anything early on, before LA scored 24 unanswered, and then the Broncos' anemic offense could not be stopped from that point on, as this felt like the Patriots coming back from a 28-3 deficit in the Super Bowl against Atlanta. The Broncos were easily outgamed by the Chargers, but of their 351 total yards, over 300 came in the second half, leading to those 4 touchdowns. I like Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn, but this is now their 4th loss after holding a lead of at least 16 points, and if not for Tyrod Taylor having his lung punctured by their own team doctors, who knows when we would have finally seen Herbert play. Lynn has certainly made some questionable decisions, and his seat is starting to warm up. We move on from an AFC West to an NFC West battle, and this was an interesting one, because the 49ers were coming off impressive wins over the Rams and Patriots, while the Seahawks had just suffered their first loss of the season last Sunday night at the hands of the Cardinals, in a game I'm pretty sure they felt like they should have won. The Niners defense came out hot, blowing up a wide receiver screen, their returning nickelback K'Wan Williams getting a sack off a blitz, and then rallying on another screen to DK Metcalf to force a quick 3-and-out for the Seahawks. After a big reception over the middle by Brandon Ayuk for San Francisco, they had to punt as well, but were able to pin the Seahawks at their own 1, and after an initial first down, they had to punt as well as Russell Wilson was a little off on a couple of throws. A nice Tevin Coleman run already at the 49ers at the fringe of field goal range, but then after San Francisco had 1 turnover fortunately overturned, as fumble recovery of JaMychal Hasty was deemed to be out of bounds. Jimmy Garoppolo was picked off by former teammate DJ Reed on a ball thrown behind George Kittle on a pivot route. A couple of Seahawks first downs later, Russ hit DK Metcalf on a deep in route, where the freakish receiver showed off his speed once again, after that viral chase down tackle to deny a pick 6 on Budda Baker he had last week, as he came across the field and then turned it up the sideline for a 46-yard touchdown. The PAT, however, would go off the upright. A few big completions to Brandon Ayuk and Kendrick Bourne got the Niners into a goal-to-go situation, before on 3rd down, JaMychal Hasty just crossed the goal line on yet another huge collision with Bobby Wagner, putting San Francisco up 7-6. That wouldn't last long, however, as a couple of plays later, Russ connected with DK on another deep ball along the sideline, which for them looks like a simple pitch and catch by now, and shortly after, he hit the monster wideout on another slant route for his 2nd touchdown of the game. When the Niners got the ball back, Bobby Wagner badly beat the center for a sack and 3rd down, giving the ball back to Russ and company with a little over a minute left, but then quickly they had to punt again and San Francisco just ran down the rest of the clock. In the second half, San Francisco's offense would go 3-and-out twice and have a fumble by Dante Pettis on a kick return, while the Seahawks would score 17 points on the 3 following possessions, and if not for Emmanuel Mosley doing a great job to knock down another fade route to Metcalf in the end zone, it would have actually been 3 touchdowns. First, Russ got a big scramble and then dumped it off to his running back DJ Dallas, who was actually the 4th guy on the depth chart at the start of the season, but had a big role in this one with Chris Carson and Carlos hideout. Then after a fumble on the kickoff, Russ made a tremendous play, evading the rush and hitting David Moore for his 4th passing TD on the day, and finally it was a long field goal that put the Hawks up 30-7. That's when Kyle Shanahan decided to pull a hobble Jimmy G, who had a very up and down performance, including some bad misses, out of the game and put in Nick Mullins, who finally got them into the end zone again, with Jerick McKinnon finishing from short distance after a couple of hookups with Ayuk. And after finally getting another Seattle 3-and-out, he went right back to Ayuk, got a big completion to Bourne, and then backup tight end Ross Dwelly for another touchdown, but with the 2-pointer coming up short, this remained a 10-point affair. The ensuing onside kick attempt wouldn't work, and even though the Seahawks didn't seem to understand going out of bounds would actually stop the clock, a hit to the head of Wilson put Seattle in the red zone. I'm not totally sure about that one though, because Russ almost did like a fake slide and put himself into danger for that hit in the head area, which ended up in another touchdown for DJ Dallas. San Francisco will get into the end zone one more time, as they got some big completions over the middle, and then Mullins hit Ayuk on a bit of a stutter release at the goal line, but the onside kick once again wouldn't work, and that had us with the final score of 37-27. Once again, the injury bug bites the Niners hard, as Jimmy G and Kittle will be out for at least 6 and 8 weeks respectively, but if Mullins can just execute Shanahan's offense, I think they have a recipe to make this a very tough game for the Packers still on Thursday night, after they blew them out twice last year already. And now we move on to the Saints traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. a 26-23 game that took us to overtime. On the first third down of the game, Drew Brees was taking off the field even when they had 5 yards to go to put in Taysom Hill, who would convert with his legs. A few nice plays from Alvin Kamara later, New Orleans hit a field goal to cap off a 7-minute opening drive. After some quick rhythm passing for Nick Foles had the Bears field goal range, they went with a rather conservative run call to David Montgomery on a 3rd and long, but he broke a couple of tackles and picked up a new first down. But a big sack in combination of Marcus Davenport and Sheldon Rankins forced them to sell for free anyway, capping off their 14-play 7-minute drive. On a falling 2nd down for the Saints, Kamara took a simple angle route 52 yards, and after one snap off, he got another first down but making the defender miss after the catch. Then there was a Taysom Hill run a play later to put them in the red zone, but the Bears were finally able to clamp down, and the ensuing field goal attempt from Will Lutz went off the upright from just 27 yards away. A couple of plays later, Foles hit rookie Darnell Mooney on a skinny post that took them from one 25-yard line to the other, before 2 plays later, Allen Robinson laid out for the game's first touchdown on a corner route. And after 3 straight 3-and-outs combined for these two teams, David Montgomery got his longest run of the season when the Bears got linebacker Demario Davis out of position with an end-around fake, and he could barely get a hand on Monty, who ripped off a 38-yarder to set up another field goal for the home team. However, after Brees got stripped by Khalil Mack a couple of plays later and had to recover it himself, he led a masterful 2-minute drill, including a 4th and 1 conversion that ended up in a 16-yard touchdown by Jared Cook on a post over the middle, sending us to halftime with a score of 13-10 for Chicago. The Saints defense ended the Bears' opening drive following the break after just 1 first down with a sack, but Demario Davis came in first and then Malcolm Jenkins finished it off as Foles barely could hold on to the ball before New Orleans tied the score with a short field goal from Lutz following a 42-yard punt return by Deontay Harris. Just 2 plays later, Foles was picked off by Marshall Lattimore as he carelessly let it go off his back foot to Jimmy Graham, who did not expect the back shoulder throw, but at least the Bears were able to hold the opponents to another field goal after already converting a 4th down, and then Brees making a bad throw out of bounds as Kamara had a step on his man on a wheel route. After another 3-and-out for Chicago had the Saints set up at the 50 following the punt, New Orleans tried to pick up another 4th down, but this time they could knock at that 1 yard on a toss play to Kamara that looked kind of weird from the start. The Bears came back with a turnover on downs themselves as they went for it on the fringe of field goal range, and Lattimore should have actually had his 2nd pick of the game as Foles just threw it up for Allen Robinson while falling away. And a few plays later, Brees hit the guy who usually steals quarterback snaps for him in Taysom Hill on a dig route for a 20-yard score. Foles would answer with some big completions to Allen Robinson deep over the middle and then Graham at the sideline before the big tight end forced a flag for pass interference on 3rd and long in the end zone as he was running down the seams. And then Foles hit an open Darnell Mooney on flat route out of a bunch to get within 3. The Bears defense was able to force a 3-and-out after that, with Dan Trevathan making a nice tackle on the elusive Kamara in the flats, giving Foles and company just under 2 minutes to pull off another miraculous drive late. On the very next play, it looked like rookie tight end Cole Kmet put the ball on the ground for a game-sealing fumble, but that surprisingly was ruled incomplete after the review, and then Foles would get 2 huge 4th down conversions, first hitting Anthony Miller on a crosser, and then to Robinson, before going back to Miller on the 3rd and long following the sack, leading to a 51-yard field goal from Cairo Santos, which sent us to overtime. And Brees was almost picked off by Roquan Smith on the 2nd play of the extra period, as he tried to hit Jared Cook on an out route, but after punching the ball to Chicago, Cam Jordan put the heat on Foles to give his offense another crack at it. Eddie Jackson almost got his first interception of the year off a rare Brees scramble, but a completion over the middle to Traquan Smith, an illegal contact penalty, and another nice toss play to Kamara set up Lutz's walk-off 35-yarder to escape in the Windy City. Once again, the Bears showed a lot of fight. Kamara was by far the best player on the field, and Drew Brees not being able to cut through the wind with his arm and just being hesitant to pull the trigger, that's concerning for the Saints. And that brings us to Sunday Night Football with the Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles. It looked like a much more interesting matchup before the year, as this one was for the lead in the NFC East, but that division has been so disappointing so far. The Cowboys went into this game with their 3rd-string quarterback Ben DiNucci, while the Eagles started to get more healthy, with tight end Dallas Goedert and 1st-round pick Jalen Reagor back in the lineup. This should have really been a blowout for Philly, and even though it's a 14-point difference on the final scoreboard, this game was pretty close until the 4th quarter. You clearly saw that Dallas was trying to protect the quarterback, as the first play from scrimmage was a double reverse to CeeDee Lamb, and they ran a few wildcat plays with Zeke. But with the careless play from Carson Wentz and the Eagles offense, the Cowboys somehow were up 9-7 at the half. After Philly got a 20-yard run from Boston Scott on the very first play on offense, DeMarcus Lawrence got a sack on Wentz on a nice up and under move against Jordan Mailata, and then as Wentz was scrambling to the left, he for some reason didn't throw it away, leading to Donovan Wilson coming up and taking him down, and Wentz dropped the ball for a big fumble to set Dallas up in scoring range, which was just a horrible play to Wentz. But on 2nd and goal, Ben DiNucci gave the ball right back on a Brandon Graham strip sack, a couple of nice runs by Scott, and a fade ball to Travis Fulgham later. Philly was in a goal-to-goal situation, which ended up in a Jalen Reagor touchdown on a flat route off play action. The Cowboys would follow it up with a 3-and-out before the Eagles decided to go for it on 4th down, just across midfield. But Leighton Vander Esch got to Wentz on a blitz and knocked the ball out once again, as the quarterback missed a wide-open Greg Ward over the middle on a hook route, which should have probably been his hot read. Later on, the Eagles were gifted a new series due to a questionable low hit on Wentz, but that would lead to an interception in the end zone for rookie cornerback Trevon Diggs, as Wentz tried to hit Reagor working across the field as he was scrambling to his right. Diggs almost got another pick off Wentz as he was driving on a curl route, before the Eagles turned it over on downs as Wentz and Fulgham were just a little off on another curl route, and after one sideline completion for the Cowboys, Greg Sörlin hit one of the weirdest looking 59-yard field goals you will ever see on like a swerving line driver, but that had the Cowboys out 9-7 at the half. A flag for pass interference on Anthony Brown, face guarding Travis Fulgham, got the Eagles across the 40 on the second play of the halftime, but then Wentz gave Trevon Diggs his second interception of the day as he had John Hightower one-on-one on a post route, but instead of leading him across the field, he threw it almost like a fade and let it hang up there for a great over-the-shoulder catch by the rookie corner, even though the wind was probably a factor in the flight of the ball. The Cowboys started the next drive with 7 straight runs, and almost all of them were inside zones, before they drew up another trick play where they got it to Cedric Wilson in a reverse pass, but that was shot down by an unblocked Fletcher Cox, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 18, which after no game basically on a slipstream, led to a missed 52-yarder from Sörlin, after it felt like they could have just continued to hand it off. Dallas Goedert finally made his first catch, now coming back, to take the Eagles back into the red zone, which ended in a Fulgham touchdown on like a slow play release fade against Diggs, and then Wentz also hit Reagor on a shallow crosser, going up against linebacker Jalen Smith for the 2-point conversion to make this a 6-point difference. DiNucci started going for Mike Gallup to get them to the middle of the field, before holding call on a keep by the quarterback set them back a little, and then the refs had to bring in the chains on consecutive snaps and finally gave the Cowboys a 1st down on a rather favorable spot it felt like. They would be stopped on another 4th and 2 however, as they were trying to get it to Lamb on a pivot route of a little pick play, but Nikel Roby-Coleman did a great job of sticking with it and DiNucci could not get it anywhere off the scramble, giving the ball back to Philly. The Eagles had another quick 3-and-out however, as Greg Ward could not catch a slant route at the mark on 3rd down, before Dallas put together a nice drive to the opposing 20, before TJ Edwards got through on a 3rd down blitz, where DiNucci did not get the ball out on time and put it on the ground, which on replay certainly looked like it was already recovered by Vinny Curry, who was down on the ground, but instead it was originally ruled a return touchdown by Rodney McLeod. DiNucci on the following possession was sacked on 2nd down and then almost picked off trying to force something off a scramble on 3rd and long, which led to a punt seemingly, but instead the Cowboys decided to snap it through the end zone to set up a rare free kick after the safety, which after a sky kick led to a crazy scrum for it, ultimately was recovered by Philly. After the 2-minute warning, the Eagles were unable to convert on 4th down, as Jalen Reagor almost came up with another touchdown on a fade route, but even though Dallas took it all the way to the opposing 5, a quick screen to Holly Pollard could not get them any points at the end, and that led to a final result of 23-9. But this was not a pretty game to watch for the most part. However, we got a pretty good one on Monday night, as the Buccaneers were favored by 2 touchdowns over the Giants, but this became a highly entertaining matchup that went down to the final moments. The Bucs offense was rolling on the opening drive, with Ronald Jones running the ball and attacking downfield off play action with extra linemen in protection, but the Giants were able to stop them just inside the 20, leading to the game's first points coming off a field goal. It would take them until the very end of the first half, however, to put up any extra points, when they knocked down another field goal, since Ronald Jones had the ball punched out by Blake Martinez to set up the Giants offense at the Tampa 12 already, and New York would be the first to get into the end zone on a tremendous grab from Dion Lewis on the wheel route, when Darren White was pretty much in perfect position actually. Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham threw a lot of different coverages in the direction of the Bucs offense, and ran plenty of games up front on obvious passing situations to make Tom Brady re-evaluate the pocket post-snap, as the 2 other drives of the first half were stopped around midfield, once by a big sack from Leonard Williams, while the Giants had to punt twice in opposing territory themselves, while getting knocked out of field goal range by a 3rd down sack from Darren White on one of those, who actually showed blitz, then faked bailing out for a split second, and then got to Daniel Jones unblocked. But on their final possession before the break, with about 5 minutes left, they got 3 straight first down to start, with Wayne Gallman busting loose up the middle, and then a couple of nice catches for Darius Slayton, before Evan Ingram was pushed out of bounds just short of the goal line, which Gallman finished off to give them the 14-3 lead, temporarily at least. And even with a late field goal by the Bucs, the 1-6 Giants were up 8 points at the half against one of the elite teams in the NFC, and the Giants were actually able to find success with the power runs right up the gut for most of the game, and their only drive with less than 8 plays in the first half came on that short field that they were set up with for the first touchdown of the night. A big opening kickoff return in the second half by Dion Lewis oriented the Giants near midfield once again, but on the second play, Daniel Jones made a bad decision to throw it across the field while getting hit and was picked off by Carlton Davis on a play where he had Darius Slayton wide open for a touchdown on a slant and go. Even after a 4th-and-2 conversion, the Bucs had to settle for the third field goal by Ryan Succop before the Giants almost had the biggest play of the night, again beating Jamel Dean on a sluggo, this time with Sterling Shepard, who had the ball just go off his fingertips on the opposite side of the field, where he could have probably tracked it down if he just took off and not looked back at the quarterback the whole way. A seam route to Gronk and then a deep curl to Mike Evans off play action before a tug on the jersey of Jared Mickens by James Bradbury set them up at the 3, from where Gronk caught a touchdown off play action when the ball was actually tipped at the line, but a missed 2-point conversion to Evans put Tampa up by just a point. After getting called for a big play, the Giants might have had a touchdown set up, with Sterling Shepard catching a throwback screen with blockers in front of him, but Jason Pierre-Paul in an outstanding hustle play to chase him down after a good 10 yards, and then Evan Ingram made good for that drop he had late in the Giants game last Thursday night, as this time he held onto the ball on one of those fade routes when he was in an inline alignment with a wide release, getting the G-man into the red zone, but a holding call set them back a little before retaking the lead on a field goal. The score was now 17-15. The Bucs would follow it up with their first 3-and-out of the night, as another deep ball on the sideline to Scotty Miller was knocked down by Isaac Yiadom, and then Brady was taken down for a sack by a collapsing pocket. And after getting a third down conversion to Golden Tate on a slant across midfield, Big Blue seemingly had some nice momentum going, but once again Daniel Jones made an immature decision to force a throw into the flats late, while being in the grasp of Shaq Barrett, which was picked up by Sean Murphy-Bunting. Tampa got some offensive production but less heralded targets, as Jaden Mickens converted a 3rd and short on an out route, and then Tyler Johnson got 20 yards back after holding call, before Cameron Braid catch on a deep out off play action to go with a very questionable lowering of the helmet penalty, gave the visitors a 1st and goal, which they immediately converted into a touchdown on a goal line fade by Mike Evans against Bradbury, taking a 5-point lead. New York would go 3-and-out, with JPP chopping Daniel Jones down as he was trying to take off, while Brady, after stepping up in the pocket, hit Gronk over the middle for another big first down just across the 50, and then Bradbury was called for another pass interference, which he was actually in great position but couldn't quite turn his head. The G-man would come up with a big stop of Leonard Fournette up the middle on a 3rd and short to force a field goal and make this an 8-point difference, and that gave the ball back to the Giants with 3.5 minutes but no timeouts left, and they got 2 incredible 4th down conversions, once needing 5 yards and Daniel Jones just fading away and throwing the ball up near the sideline, where Darius Slayton came back for it and turned upfield, and then following a sack on 4th and 16, with Jones extending the play before finding Sterling Shepard across the marker, and a couple of plays later, he hit Golden Tate on the backline of the end zone on a seam route on a perfect throw, meaning they were only a 2-point conversion away from tying this game up, and they had a great play called up as they tried to hit Dion Lewis in the flats off a short motion, and rookie safety Antoine Winfield was initially flagged for getting there early, but that flag would be picked up, leading to an onside kick attempt, which was denied by the Bucs. However, if that pass from Daniel Jones comes out a little earlier or a little further to the outside, that will send us to overtime. Daniel Jones' 2 careless picks pretty much cost the Giants a win here, but he also made some big throws, and they were one better ball and 2-pointer away from sending this one to OT. The big story here is the Giants' defense, however, which already won in the Washington game a couple of weeks ago, and now has kept them within 2 points of the Eagles and Bucs, with a very good chance of winning both of them. So Joe Judge's troops, they're on the right path. And that brings us to the end of a Week 8 recap. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, just share it with a friend or two. You can find all my social media linked down below, and as I already mentioned, make sure to check out my page at RealSworthFootballtalk.com, where tomorrow I will post my midseason awards, and I will be back next Wednesday with another weekly recap. So until then, see you later. Peace.